The shattered Trust Commander, Elena Vasquez, stepped off the transport shuttle onto the crystal platform of Nexus Prime, feeling the familiar weight of diplomatic responsibility on her shoulders. The towering spires of the stellar confederations, capitals stretched impossibly high into the purple sky, each one pulsing with soft light that seemed to breathe with the rhythm of some vast unseen heart. Beside her, Dr. Marcus Chen adjusted his translation device and stared up at the magnificent architecture with the wide-eyed wonder that made him such an effective cultural analyst. The Stellar Confederation had been humanity's greatest discovery. When Earth first reached the stars 50 years ago, a peaceful alliance of over 200 species, all working together to maintain order and prosperity across the galaxy. Alina remembered the pride she felt as a young officer when humanity was invited to join this cosmic brotherhood. Now, as Earth's primary liaison, she carried the hopes of 12 billion humans who dreamed of a future among the stars. Ambassador Thelanara of the Vithari approached them with flowing, graceful movements that reminded Alina of water flowing over smooth stones. The Vithari were among the most respected members of the Confederation, known for their wisdom and gentle nature. Their crystalline skin caught the light beautifully, creating rainbow patterns that shifted with their emotions. "Welcome back to Nexus Prime, Commander Vasquez." Thelanara spoke through the translator, their voice carrying musical undertones that human ears found soothing. High Counselor Vexen is eager to discuss the proposed expansion of human colonies in the Outer Rim territories. Alina smiled and bowed in the traditional Vithari greeting. "The honor is ours, Ambassador. Earth looks forward to contributing more to the Confederation's prosperity." She meant every word. The Confederation had given humanity so much: advanced medicine that had eliminated most diseases, clean energy that had solved Earth's environmental crisis, and technologies that had allowed humans to spread to 17 different worlds. As they walked through the grand corridors of the Council complex, Marcus whispered observations about the various alien species they encountered. The proud, lion-like Kethmori warriors with their golden manes and fierce eyes. The diminutive, but brilliant Zixstar, engineers with their multiple arms working constantly on complex devices. The ethereal Nilvani, whose transparent bodies seemed to glow from within. Each species had found their place in the Confederation's grand design, contributing their unique strengths to the common good. But something felt different today. Alina noticed it in the way conversations stopped when they approached, in the nervous glances exchanged between species that had always seemed comfortable together. The usual bustling energy of Nexus Prime felt muted, as if everyone was holding their breath. Their first scheduled meeting was delayed, then delayed again. By the 4th hour of waiting in the luxurious guest quarters, Marcus had begun pacing nervously. "This isn't normal protocol," he muttered, running his hands through his dark hair. "In 5 years of diplomatic visits, we've never been kept waiting like this." Alina was about to suggest they contact Earth when a soft chime indicated someone at their door, but instead of an official escort, they found a figure huddled in the corridor shadows. It was a Kethmori, but unlike any Alina had ever seen. This one was thin to the point of starvation, his golden mane dull and patchy, his fierce eyes replaced with a look of desperate terror. "Please," the alien whispered in broken standard, "you must listen. I am Zephyr of the Kethmori 4th. Pride, I was chosen for the honor guard 3 cycles ago." His voice cracked. "But there is no honor, only darkness, only feeding." Marcus immediately moved to help support the weakened alien. "What happened to you? Where have you been?" Zephyr's eyes darted frantically down the corridor. The deep levels, where they keep us, where they drain us. Your species, ... You are next. Tonight, the council votes. Tonight, humanity joins the feeding pools. Alina felt ice form in her stomach. What are you talking about? What feeding pools? With shaking hands, Zephyr pulled out a small data crystal. Evidence, pictures, the truth about what the Confederation really is. We are not partners. We are livestock, and once a species reaches sufficient population across enough worlds, we are harvested. The crystal contained horrors that would haunt Alina for the rest of her life. Vast underground chambers filled with millions of beings from dozens of species, suspended in nutrient solutions, their life force being slowly drained to power the Confederation's magnificent cities and starships. The proud Kethmori warriors, reduced to mindless energy batteries. The brilliant Zixstar engineers kept alive but unconscious, their creativity siphoned to fuel Confederation technology. Species after species, reduced from free civilizations to fuel sources. Marcus stared at the images with growing horror. The Nephthali, the Morden Empire, the Celestial Dominion. All these species, we were told, had ascended to higher purpose. They're all here. They're all being consumed. Zephyr finished weakly. My people discovered the truth 2 years ago. We tried to resist. Most of the Fourth Pride was captured. I escaped only because a maintenance tunnel collapsed during my transport to the deep levels. Elena's mind raced. Humanity controlled 17 worlds now, with a combined population approaching 15 billion. According to the historical records, that was exactly the threshold where species typically ascended in Confederation service. How long do we have? She asked. The formal announcement will come tomorrow, but the harvesting ships are already moving toward human space. Your frontier colonies will be hit first. Kepler Station, New Geneva, the mining worlds of the Tau Ceti system. They always start with the isolated settlements, where disappearances won't be noticed immediately. The implications crashed over Alina like a tsunami. Her brother commanded the defense station at Kepler. Her childhood friend Sarah Mitchell was leading the terraforming project on New Geneva. Millions of humans were about to walk unknowingly into slavery and death. Marcus was studying the technical readouts from the crystal. These energy extraction systems, they're incredibly sophisticated. But Alina, look at this power distribution network. His voice carried a mixture of horror and fascination. The entire Confederation is powered by enslaved life force. Every ship, every city, every piece of their miraculous technology, it's all built on the suffering of conquered species. Zephyr nodded weakly. The original Confederation species discovered this technology 50,000 years ago. They used it first on themselves, creating a small ruling class that fed on the masses. When they exhausted their own populations, they began reaching out to other worlds, presenting themselves as benevolent guides and allies. But there has to be resistance, Alina said. Other species must have tried to fight back. There is, Zephyr replied, his eyes gaining a spark of hope for the first time. Hidden in the deep levels, scattered across a dozen worlds. Survivors who escaped the harvesting, rebels who learned the truth before it was too late. They call themselves the Unchained, and they have been waiting for decades for a species strong enough to help them strike back. Alina felt a chill as she realized what he was implying. You think humanity is that species? Your people are different. The Confederation has studied you for 50 years, and they still don't understand you. Most species, when they join the Confederation become dependent on the technology and guidance provided. They grow soft, lose their edge, but humans... Zephyr managed something that might have been a smile. Humans remain stubborn. You adapt their technology instead of being adapted by it. You maintain your independence even while accepting their help. This terrifies the High Council. Marcus looked up from the data crystal. That's why they're moving so quickly. They were planning to wait another generation, but something has spooked them. The answer came from an unexpected source. The wall screen in their quarters suddenly activated, showing the symbol of the High Council. High Counselor Vexan S. Angular face appeared, his cold reptilian features arranged in what was probably meant to be a reassuring expression. Citizens of the Confederation, Vexan announced. It is with great excitement that we prepare to welcome our human friends into the next phase of their service to galactic peace. Tomorrow's ceremony will mark humanity's graduation to the most honored role in Confederation society, the role of eternal guardians. Alina felt sick. Even in announcing humanity's enslavement, the Confederation wrapped it in noble language. However, Vexin continued. Recent intelligence suggests that certain radical elements may attempt to disrupt this joyous occasion. Security protocols have been enhanced, and all non-essential personnel should remain in their quarters until the ceremony concludes. The transmission ended, and Elena realized they were already prisoners. But as if to prove Zephyr's point about human stubbornness, her first thought wasn't about escape, it was about getting word to Earth. We need to warn them, she said firmly. Even if we don't make it out, humanity deserves to know what's coming. Zephyr struggled to his feet. The Unchained have been preparing for this moment. Hidden throughout Nexus Prime are others like me, survivors who have learned to hide in plain sight. If we can reach the communication hub in Sublevel 7, we can send a message that the Confederation cannot intercept or stop. Marcus was already gathering their equipment. What about after we send the warning? Even if Earth is prepared, they'll be facing the combined might of 200 species worth of stolen technology. Alina thought about her training, about the history lessons that had shaped her worldview. She thought about humanity's long struggle from caves to stars, about the wars and disasters that had only made humans stronger and more determined. She thought about the impossible victories human history was filled with, David facing Goliath, the few defeating the many through courage and cleverness. Then we make sure they're not facing it alone, she said quietly. If there's a resistance, movement, humanity will join it. And if the Confederation thinks they understand humans, they're about to learn how wrong they are. Zephyr's eyes gleamed with something Alina hadn't seen before, hope. The chains that have bound the galaxy for 50,000 years, they are about to break. As alarms began blaring throughout Nexus Prime, Alina Vasquez realized that her role had changed forever. She was no longer a diplomat representing humanity's interests. She was now a rebel carrying the spark that would either free the galaxy or die trying. And as the three unlikely allies prepared to venture into the depths of the Confederation's greatest stronghold, Alina felt something she had never experienced before in all her years of peaceful negotiation, the fierce joy of knowing she was about to start a war worth fighting. Asterisk the spark that freed the galaxy. The message Alina sent from Sublevel 7 reached Earth in a burst of quantum-encrypted data that bypassed every Confederation monitoring system. Within hours, President Maria Santos was staring at images that shattered 50 years of human trust in their galactic allies. The evidence was undeniable. The Stellar Confederation was a lie built on the bones of enslaved civilizations, And humanity was next. Captain Sarah Mitchell stood in the war room beneath the Pentagon, watching the holographic display show Confederation fleets moving toward human space. Her weathered face remained calm, but Alina knew her well enough to see the fury burning in her dark eyes. Sarah had spent 20 years building humanity's colonial defenses, never imagining she would need to defend against their supposed protectors, Kepler. Station went dark 4 hours ago, Sarah reported grimly. New Geneva stopped responding 2 hours after that. Whatever they're using to pacify populations, it works fast. Dr. Chun's analysis of the data Zefta had provided revealed the horrible efficiency of the Confederation's harvesting methods. They deploy neural dampening fields first, he explained to the assembled military leaders. The population becomes docile and compliant within minutes. Then the harvesting ships arrive and the people walk aboard willingly, thinking they're being evacuated to safety. President Santos studied the tactical projections with growing alarm. How long before they reach Earth? 72 hours, Sarah answered. But that's not our biggest problem. Look at these fleet compositions. They're not just bringing harvesting ships. They're bringing enough firepower to crack planets. If humanity resists, they plan to eliminate us entirely rather than risk our rebellion spreading to other species. Alina had barely slept since returning to Earth, but her mind was racing with possibilities. The resistance movement, Zefta mentioned, we need to contact them. If we're going to fight, we can't do it alone. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Lieutenant Commander James Park, a communications specialist who had been analyzing alien signal patterns for years, discovered something remarkable hidden in the Confederation's own transmission networks. There's a secondary communication layer, he explained excitedly. It's been there all along, but we never noticed because it mimics natural cosmic background radiation. The Resistance has been using the Confederation's own infrastructure to coordinate across the galaxy. Within hours, Earth was in contact with the Unchained. The scope of the hidden rebellion was staggering. Survivors from over 40 species, scattered across hundreds of worlds, all waiting for the right moment to strike. But their leader's first message to humanity was sobering. Korvac of the Tilanothi spoke through a holographic projector, his insectoid features scarred by years of fighting. We have waited 3 generations for a species capable of leading this rebellion, but you must understand, we are asking you to sacrifice your civilization. The Confederation will pour everything they have into destroying Earth once the uprising begins. Your world will bear the brunt of their fury. President Santos didn't hesitate. Then we'd better make sure their fury isn't enough. What followed were the most intense 72 hours in human history. While Sarah coordinated the evacuation of non-essential personnel from Earth and the mobilization of every military asset humanity possessed, Alina worked with the Unchained to plan a coordinated strike across the galaxy. The plan was audacious beyond belief. Simultaneous uprisings on 50 worlds, targeting the Confederation's most critical installations. Marcus made a discovery that changed everything. While studying the energy networks that powered Confederation technology, he found something the aliens had missed, a fundamental weakness in their life force extraction systems. They've been using this technology for so long, they've forgotten how it actually works, he explained to Alina. The power grid isn't just drawing energy from enslaved populations, it's creating a galaxy-wide neural network. Every harvested being is connected to every other. If we can disrupt the network at enough nodes simultaneously, we free everyone at once, Alina finished, understanding immediately. But the plan required something unprecedented: human volunteers, who would allow themselves to be captured and connected to the harvesting network, carrying disruption codes that Marcus had developed based on Earth's own cybernetics research. It was a suicide mission with galaxy-spanning consequences. When Sarah called for volunteers, over 2 million humans stepped forward. The final battle began when Confederation fleets arrived in Earth's solar system, expecting to find a compliant population ready for harvesting. Instead, they found a hornet's nest. Every human colony, every space station, every asteroid mining facility had been turned into a fortress. Sarah had learned from humanity's own history: when facing overwhelming force, make the enemy pay for every inch. But the real shock came when the Confederation deployed their neural dampening fields. The technology that had pacified hundreds of species had no effect on humans. Marcus's research had revealed why human neural patterns were too chaotic, too individualistic, the same stubborn independence that had frustrated Confederation. Social engineers for 50 years now made humanity immune to their most powerful weapon. High Counselor Vexan's face appeared on screens across the solar system, his reptilian features twisted with rage. You cannot resist forever, humans. We have the combined power of 200 species. You are one world, alone and defiant. Surrender now, and we may yet find a use for you. Elena's response was broadcast not just to the Confederation fleet, but to every enslaved world in their empire. You're wrong about humans being alone. And you're about to learn that the greatest mistake you can make is underestimating people who refuse to give up. As she spoke, the coordinated uprising began. On Zethkara Prime, Kethmori warriors who had never forgotten their pride broke free from their harvesting chambers and seized the planet's defense grid. On New Thylos, Zixter engineers used their forced connection to the power network to overload extraction facilities across 3 star systems. Species that had been enslaved for centuries remembered what freedom felt like and fought with desperate fury. But it was on Earth that the decisive battle was fought. Sarah's defense forces, vastly outnumbered and outgunned, held the line while the volunteers who had been captured began their work from within the Confederation's own ships. The disruption code spread through the neural network like a virus, but a virus with consciousness and purpose. Marcus watched from the Lunar Command Center as his algorithms encountered something he had never predicted. The enslaved beings weren't just being freed, they were fighting back from within the network itself. 50,000 years of accumulated rage and desperate hope were flowing through the connections, overwhelming the control systems and turning the Confederation's greatest strength into their fatal weakness. The moment when the chains broke was visible across the galaxy. On every world where the Confederation had built their harvesting facilities, the lights went out. Not just the mechanical lights, but the soul lights that had powered their civilization for millennia. In the space of hours, the most powerful empire in galactic history found itself running on reserve power and facing rebellions on every world they controlled. Alina stood on the observation deck of the lunar facility, watching Confederation ships go dark and drift powerless through space. Some were exploding as their enslaved crew members sabotaged them from within. Others were changing course, their newly freed pilots taking them home to worlds they hadn't seen in generations. Zefter, recovering from his ordeal but finally free of the network's influence, joined her at the viewport. "It is done," he said quietly. "The Unchained are truly unchained." But Alina knew the victory came at a terrible cost. Earth bore the scars of orbital bombardment that had killed millions. Entire human colonies had been wiped out in the first wave of Confederation attacks. The price of galactic freedom had been paid largely in human blood. Was it worth it? Marcus asked, joining them as reports came in from across the galaxy. Liberated species were establishing new governments, forming alliances, beginning the long process of healing from millennia of slavery. Alina thought about the billions of beings who were breathing free air for the first time in their lives, about the children who would grow up never knowing the shadow of the harvesting ships. She thought about humanity's place in this new galaxy, no longer junior partners in someone else's empire, but the species that had lit the spark of rebellion. "Ask me again in 100 years," she said, "when we see what kind of galaxy we've built." Korvac's transmission reached them as the last Confederation strongholds fell. The scarred resistance leader's compound eyes were bright with tears of joy. The Tilanathi have a saying, "The chain breaks at its weakest link," but you humans proved that wrong. Sometimes the chain breaks because one link refuses to bend. President Santos appeared on screens across the solar system, addressing not just humanity but the entire galaxy. Today marks the end of one age and the beginning of another. We fought not for conquest or revenge, but for the simple right to exist as free beings. That fight is over. Now begins the harder work of building something better. Sarah Mitchell, promoted to Admiral for her role in the defense of Earth, established the first Galactic Defense Coalition with representatives from every liberated species. The new alliance had a simple charter: never again would any species be enslaved, and never again would the galaxy mistake peaceful cooperation for weakness. Years later, when the historians wrote about the Confederation War, they would argue about why humanity succeeded where so many others had failed. Some pointed to technological advantages, others to strategic brilliance or tactical innovation. But Alina knew the real answer was simpler and more profound. Humanity had succeeded because they never learned how to give up. When faced with impossible odds, humans didn't calculate the probability of victory. They figured out how to make victory possible. When offered the choice between comfortable slavery and dangerous freedom, they chose danger every time. The galaxy that emerged from the ashes of the Confederation was messier, louder, and far more chaotic than the sterile perfection that had come before. But it was also alive with possibility, filled with species discovering their own potential instead of having their lives drained away to fuel someone else's dreams. And at the center of it all, humanity took their place not as conquerors or rulers, but as the stubborn, impossible species that had looked at 50,000 years of accepted truth and said, "We don't accept this." The chains that had bound the galaxy were broken. The spark that freed it had been kindled in human hearts that refused to be extinguished. And in the end, that spark had proven stronger than all the combined power of those who thought freedom was a privilege they could grant or withhold. The galaxy was free, and it would stay free, because humans had learned something their former masters never understood. Freedom isn't something you're given. It's something you take and keep, and defend with everything you have, because that's what humans do. They endure, they adapt, they overcome, and they never, ever give up. Asterisk.